The first mistake was arrogance. From the bridge of the Vekhorn Watcher, I observed Earth as nothing more than a fragile ornament suspended in the cold cradle of space, a blue and white pearl trembling at the edge of the spiral arm. Our sensors registered minimal emissions, faint pulses of energy that whispered of life barely aware of the greater cosmos. The analysts, in their infinite hubris, dismissed the planet as a primitive, disorganized collection of mammals, bound by emotion and ritual, incapable of threatening a single cruiser in our fleet. I had my doubts. Even then, I felt an unease I could not name, a subtle vibration under my scales that no report could quantify. Their satellites did not chatter. Unlike other newborn species whose transmissions screamed across the void with desperate curiosity, Earth's network listened. I saw it, the quiet hum of observation, the way their automated systems recorded, analyzed, and waited. There was patience there, a calculated awareness, and I should have recognized it. We slipped our fleet into orbit, a crescent of warships gleaming against the sunlit clouds. Earth's surface rolled beneath us, fragile oceans reflecting a sun that seemed too distant to matter. It was serene, almost innocent. And that was our second mistake, to believe serenity implied weakness. The silence shattered without warning. I still remember the first flare, a silent scream in the void. Our long-range scanners failed to register the origin. There were no visible projectiles, no signatures of conventional weapons. One cruiser flared and dissolved into light. I watched, horrified, as my kin vaporized in streaks of luminescence, their forms disintegrating before the sensors could even record them. Every maneuver we made was anticipated, our formations shredded before they could complete. Their tactics, impossible, adaptive, instantaneous, flowed around us like a living organism. We attempted to retaliate. Orders cascaded through our command network: concentrate fire, flank, strike the surface. But it was already too late. Earth's defenses were everywhere and nowhere. Weapons awakened from beneath the oceans, from the clouds, from the very air, striking with surgical precision. Each strike was measured, efficient, and remorseless. I felt an alien terror creep into my consciousness, a fear that the universe itself had conspired against us through this single world. Minutes stretched like hours, and every second revealed a new horror: humanity's adaptability, their ability to learn and counter in real time, their refusal to reveal more than necessary. In that instant, the notion of Earth as a harmless newcomer crumbled entirely. The planet was alive with intelligence, and it was a predator. The fleet broke apart in retreat, battered, humiliated, our sensors still trying to comprehend the impossible. I felt the eyes of the planet upon us, not conscious eyes, but an awareness, vast and patient. I swear I could feel its calculation, a hunger for understanding, for challenge. It waited, watching our flight, knowing every maneuver before we executed it, and I knew that we had underestimated it in the gravest way possible. As we limped from orbit, a strange quiet returned. Not serenity, but the cold observation of a mind that had seen and learned. Reports would later describe the battle as a minor skirmish, a footnote in the chronicles of exploration. But I know the truth. Earth had taken its first measure of us, and we had failed. Its oceans and skies had swallowed our fire. Its shadows and clouds had birthed our nightmare. We carried back more than wreckage. We carried fear. And in that fear, the Galactic Council would eventually glimpse what I had already known. Humans were not a species to patronize, nor to dismiss. They were the quiet predators, patient and merciless. And in those fleeting minutes, I understood that the galaxy had encountered a force it could neither predict nor contain. The last glance I stole back toward Earth showed nothing but clouds and oceans, yet I could feel it, alive, waiting, calculating. I shivered under the weight of inevitability. This was no mere planet. It was the beginning of a reckoning. And I knew, with a dread certainty that no alien creed could soothe, that we had not seen the last of its wrath. I should have expected disbelief. When I reported what had transpired over Earth to the Galactic Council, I was met with condescension, laughter, and the faint shimmer of amusement across their crystalline faces. The elders' chambers glowed with 1,000 soft lights, each one a relic of species long extinct, each one reflecting confidence in the galaxy's hierarchy. I described the events as I had witnessed them: cruisers vaporized in seconds, our formations shredded by unseen weapons, a species that adapted faster than our tactics could account for. I spoke of drones that swarmed like living predators, rail cannons striking from impossibly vast distances, and gravity itself turned into a weapon. The counselors murmured among themselves. One elder's tone was dripping with incredulity. "You exaggerate. These humans are insignificant. Their lives are short, their societies fragmented, their technology is primitive." But I could see it in their gestures, the slight tremor of uncertainty when I presented the debris scans, the radiation anomalies, the interstellar wreckage. Still, they refused to grasp the enormity. And so, in their ignorance, they decreed punishment. 10 fleets, each the size of moons, were assembled into a punitive coalition, marching towards Sol to discipline the audacious planet that dared challenge us. I was assigned observer, to document the campaign, to bear witness without interference. They wanted proof of humanity's insignificance, and I knew I would be the first to regret it. Our approach to the Sol system was met with ambiguity. At first, humanity appeared absent, their signals quiet, their fleets unseen. Then, subtly, they began to reveal themselves. Not fully, not yet. Swarms of decoys, perfect replicas of entire armadas, danced across our long-range sensors, each reflecting our fleet in illusionary form. We recalculated, attempted to isolate the real threats, but it was impossible. Every move we anticipated had already been anticipated. Then came the drones. Metallic, insectile, countless. They poured from the shadows, weaving through asteroid belts and gas clouds, jamming our communications, infiltrating our command networks. I watched our own orders turn against us as signals misfired, as weapons locked on allies instead of enemies. A chill spread across the coalition, a visceral dread that humans were not simply fighting. They were orchestrating the battle as a conductor guides a symphony of destruction. The first volley of gravity weapons arrived without warning. I will never forget the sight. Asteroids, torn from their orbits and flung like divine missiles, tore through capital ships in moments. Ships that had survived centuries of war crumpled into themselves, their hulls folding in impossible angles, their crews obliterated in silence. Invisible rail cannons struck next, piercing through shields and armor, ripping vessels apart from hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. Every attempt at retaliation was met with surgical precision. Nothing in the galaxy had prepared me, or my kind, for this. And yet, in their slaughter, there was no gloating. Humans did not revel in destruction. They struck with efficiency, cold, clinical, and without hesitation. Every action had purpose. Every strike was calculated to end a threat and move on. The dread that rippled through our command networks was compounded by disbelief. Superior species, renowned for tactics honed over millennia, cried out for retreat. And yet, even as the coalition faltered, humanity continued, relentless and unfaltering. I observed from the bridge of the Vekharn Vanguard, and I swear I could feel the planet itself, silent beneath the clouds, guiding their hands. There was patience in every move, intelligence embedded not in a single mind, but in the collective consciousness of a species that had learned from millennia of conflict. Each countermeasure we deployed was anticipated, each stratagem neutralized before it could gain momentum. It was not merely war, it was a demonstration of evolutionary inevitability, a reckoning no council could command. By the time the battle drew to its grim conclusion, debris drifted across the void like the bones of 100 civilizations. Ships of allied species, once proud and gleaming, floated as nothing more than hollow wrecks. Radiation signatures glowed faintly in the darkness, ghostly echoes of the might we had brought against this world. The Council had fled into panic, their arrogance shattered, their confidence in the galactic order undone. Whispers spread from star system to star system. Earth was not a child among giants. Earth was a predator awakening. I realized then, with a terror that seeped into my bones, that we had not invaded a planet. We had provoked a sleeping titan, one whose patience had been underestimated, whose capabilities had been dismissed. And in that realization, I felt something deeper than fear: awareness. This was no fleeting victory for humans. This was the beginning of a transformation that would echo across galaxies. Even now, the memory of the final moments lingers. Fleets broke, command networks imploded, and the silence that followed was heavier than any explosion. The Council's mistakes were monumental, but the truth was far more terrifying. The humans had not simply defended themselves. They had taught the galaxy a lesson it had never learned, and one it would never forget. As I recorded the aftermath, I felt the eyes of Sol upon us, watchful, unyielding, and calculating. The humans had vanished from immediate view, yet their presence was palpable. Their silence carried more threat than our entire armada had. I shuddered as I transmitted my report back to the Council, knowing that my words could not convey the full scope of what we had witnessed. We had not conquered, we had challenged, and the planet beneath our gaze had responded not as a child, but as a master. Captivity revealed truths the galaxy had been blind to. Shackled aboard a human detention vessel, stripped of command and freedom, I had nothing but observation. The corridors were cramped, industrial, humming with the energy of a civilization that had learned to transform every environment into a theater of efficiency. Every surface, every console, every hum of power spoke of purpose. It was not chaos, it was control, orchestrated at a level I could scarcely comprehend. From the vessel's archives, captured communications, tactical logs, and recorded strategic sessions, I began to glimpse the hidden layers of human doctrine. They had prepared for us long before our arrival. Their history of internine war, their constant struggle for dominance on a single fragile planet, had not weakened them, it had forged them. The countless conflicts between nations, the endless skirmishes over resources, ideology, and survival, all were laboratories of violence, breeding grounds for doctrine that would later be applied on a galactic scale. I listened to human generals in their digital echoes, voices sharp, deliberate, and unflinching. They spoke of concepts unfamiliar to our species: overmatch, the relentless drive to exceed an enemy's capabilities; asymmetric warfare, turning imbalance into advantage; existential defense, the understanding that survival justified any action. Their language was precise, devoid of the moral hesitation that governed most species. To them, the galaxy was not a community of equals, it was a battlefield, and every neighbor, ally, or predator was a variable to account for. What unsettled me most was the unity behind the chaos. Outwardly, humanity seemed fractured, a cacophony of nations, ideologies, and loyalties. Internally, however, they moved with terrifying cohesion. When threatened, entire populations dissolved internal divisions, transforming into a single entity, the United Terran Coalition. Factories once devoted to civilian goods converted overnight into shipyards. Civilians became engineers, soldiers, strategists. Academics drafted battle plans. Children trained in simulations of galactic conflict. Their resilience bordered on insanity. Even when fleets were destroyed, they rebuilt them stronger, faster, and more sophisticated than before. Every loss was data, every defeat a blueprint for victory. From my position, shackled and watched, I witnessed the testing of their most advanced weapons. Black Ice AI tacticians simulated entire fleets in real time, predicting outcomes with chilling accuracy. Antimatter spears tore through test drones as if cutting through silk. Dreadships bent the very fabric of space, folding distance to strike before a sensor could detect them. Even in practice, these were instruments of fear, artfully calibrated for maximum effect. Their experimentation was not reckless, it was deliberate, a constant refinement of both destructive and strategic capability. I began to understand their philosophy. Mercy was not weakness, it was a privilege, to be granted only after victory was secured. Compassion was a tool, wielded selectively to maintain order and loyalty, never imposed blindly. Their goal was survival at any cost, and every action was measured against that objective. To them, life itself was a resource, expendable, manipulable, and sometimes essential for the forging of greater strength. Through the vessel's observation ports, I saw their society's duality in motion. Cities glimmered with technology, thriving, resilient. Yet from orbit, their military installations sprawled like veins across continents, silent, efficient, and lethal. The same hands that built also destroyed. Creation and annihilation existed in perfect balance. The lesson was inescapable. We had not encountered mere warriors. We had confronted a civilization that had internalized survival as both art and science. The longer I watched, the deeper my fear grew. Every interaction, every broadcast, every movement of this species revealed layers of understanding, anticipation, and adaptation beyond the scope of any galactic codex.
They did not merely react, they preempted. They did not merely strategize, they orchestrated. Their doctrine extended beyond tactics and weaponry. It was philosophy, psychology, sociology, all woven into a single coherent strategy for dominance and endurance. Even in captivity, I was forced to acknowledge their efficiency. Humans operated without the hesitation that plagued other species. Decisions were executed immediately, evaluated rigorously, and improved continuously. Every human interaction I witnessed carried the imprint of calculated purpose. There was no wasted motion, no idle thought, no indulgence in sentimentality. And yet, beneath that precision, I sensed a current of adaptability that defied prediction. They could improvise without error, innovate within constraints, and turn disaster into opportunity with frightening ease. At night, in the silent hum of the detention vessel, I replayed captured scenarios in my mind. I saw fleets reduced to rubble by unseen weapons. I saw entire command structures dismantled by humans who had never fired a shot from their planet. I saw nations dissolve and reform under the banner of survival. And in those visions, I understood that this was only the beginning. Humanity's doctrine was not static. It was an evolving algorithm, a living system that responded to threats in real time, continuously refining, relentlessly improving. Fear became a constant companion. Not fear of death, for I had faced death countless times in battle, but a deeper, more insidious terror, the realization that we had underestimated a species that understood both creation and destruction at a fundamental level. They were capable of the highest ingenuity and the coldest ruthlessness simultaneously, and they were only beginning. I began to question everything we believed about the hierarchy of civilizations. All our assumptions about technological superiority, experience, and collective intelligence faltered in the face of human ingenuity. They did not follow patterns, they created them. They did not wait for advantage, they dictated it. Every calculation we made against them had been anticipated, every prediction countered, every strategy anticipated. As I sat in silent observation, I could feel a shift in my own species' understanding, a tenor of dread spreading through the network of our fleets and stations. If the humans had survived against us with such precision, what might they achieve if fully aware of the galaxy's vastness and its threats? The question was no longer speculative. It demanded reckoning. And so I waited, recording, observing, and fearing what was yet to come. For in those moments of revelation, I realized the truth that would haunt our species forever. We had not met merely a species of warriors. We had encountered an apex predator in embryonic form, tempered by millennia of self-inflicted conflict, and prepared to strike with the precision of gods.
The last transmission I recorded from the detention vessel carried an echo of what humanity truly was: patient, deliberate, and terrifyingly capable. Their doctrine was a living thing, growing stronger with every challenge, and I understood, with the chill certainty that only witness bears, that the galaxy had not yet seen the full measure of what humanity would unleash. Even in chains, I sensed it. The humans were awakening, and when they moved, they would do so not with chaos, but with purpose. The final war arrived without herald, like a cosmic storm tearing across the fabric of the galaxy. Every major power, long accustomed to dominance and hierarchy, united against Earth. They believed extermination was the only recourse. I found myself conscripted into a diplomatic fleet, not as a commander, but as a witness to the apocalypse unfolding before my eyes. From the observation deck of a battered dreadnought, I watched the first waves approach Seoul. And then I saw them, human armadas, emerging from the system with terrifying inevitability. Their ships flowed like liquid steel, bending in formations no sensor had predicted, weaving through asteroid belts and solar flares with flawless precision. The AI guiding them anticipated every counter, every maneuver we conceived, and acted before our calculations could complete. We were caught in a symphony of destruction conducted by a species we had once considered insignificant. The first planets fell, their skies ignited with firestorms as orbital bombardments carved continents into smoke and ash. Moons cracked under the weight of redirected gravity weapons, fragments spiraling into battle lines like jagged stars. Space itself shimmered and warped as grav drives tore fleets apart, bending reality to human will. I saw entire civilizations reduced to cinders in minutes, not out of cruelty, but out of surgical, terrifying efficiency. Each strike was purposeful, a lesson carved into the void. And yet, amidst the carnage, something profoundly unsettling emerged. Humans did not destroy indiscriminately. They fought to protect those who had submitted, those who had pledged allegiance to them. Planets that yielded peacefully were spared, guided toward reconstruction and stability. Species once considered prey or pawns were elevated under the protection of the Terran coalition. But defiance was met with absolute annihilation. Their mercy was not weakness, it was strategy. Their wrath was not hatred, it was inevitability. I watched a shattered fleet of our allies flee toward the outer systems, pursued by human dreadships that moved faster than thought. One of their flagship vessels tore through a cruiser, ripping it into pieces with gravitational shears that twisted metal as if it were molten wax. And still, there was no malice in the attack, only precision, calculation, and the inevitability of survival. They were predators, but unlike any predator I had known, their purpose was measured, their brutality deliberate.
At the heart of the conflict, Earth's flagship, the Resolute Dawn, emerged from hyperspace with the weight of the planet behind it. It confronted the Council's Grand Armada, a formation so vast it had once been considered impregnable. The collision that followed was biblical. Supernova bursts erupted as weapons of unprecedented power ignited. Space-time itself shimmered and tore as rifts opened where dreadships vanished into singularities. Entire fleets blinked out of existence before our eyes, leaving only drifting wreckage as testament to the might of humanity. Through my viewport, I witnessed the full measure of the human strategy. Each fleet, each squadron, each strike was coordinated across light minutes with a synchronicity that defied comprehension. Communications were instantaneous, as if the ships themselves were extensions of a singular mind. They adapted in real time, countering every maneuver, turning every weakness into opportunity. The galaxy's combined armada, with centuries of experience, fell apart like sand slipping through claws. And yet, in the wake of destruction, humans extended a hand to those who survived. Worlds that had surrendered were immediately stabilized. Relief fleets and repair convoys followed in the wake of devastation, offering reconstruction, guidance, and protection. It was as if the fire of war was a forge, and only those who recognized the hand of authority could emerge intact. The galaxy watched, silent and trembling, as the duality of human nature became clear, merciless to those who resisted, protective to those who yielded. I could feel the dread ripple through the remnants of the Council's hierarchy. Their arrogance, their belief in superiority, had blinded them. In their panic, they had failed to anticipate not merely human ingenuity, but human philosophy, a doctrine built on survival, unity, and ruthless pragmatism. Their fleets were shattered, their fleets scattered into drifting shards, and their armadas were reduced to nothing more than debris drifting through the void, like the bones of forgotten gods. From my vantage point, I saw the culmination of centuries of preparation. The humans did not celebrate. There was no exultation, no ceremonial triumph. They were grim, focused, disciplined, a species hardened by war and refined by survival. They had not sought glory, they had sought necessity, and in that necessity, they became masters of the galaxy in a single, decisive campaign. I recorded every moment, every strategy, every devastating strike. The galaxy had learned, in the harshest of lessons, that Earth was no longer a backwater planet, no longer a curiosity or a threat to be ignored. It was the apex of tactical, technological, and philosophical evolution.
Every species that had previously considered itself safe now understood the terrifying reality. The humans were not to be trifled with. They were absolute, inevitable, and utterly dominant.
As the light faded from the final engagements, the void seemed to shiver. Planets were scorched, moons fractured, and yet amidst the silence that followed, the Terran armadas moved with order and control. They stabilized borders, established patrols, and set protocols for reconstruction and governance. Even in conquest, there was structure, logic, and purpose. The galaxy lay silent, quivering before a power that would not gloat, would not rest, and would not falter. From the shattered window of my observation post, I saw it, the dawn of a new order. Humanity had transformed the chaos of war into authority, the destruction into control, and the galaxy into a landscape of their calculated dominion. I felt awe, fear, and a faint, unnameable respect. For in this war, Earth had revealed itself not as a planet, not as a species, but as a force of nature, unstoppable and unyielding. And as I recorded the last signals from the Council's remnants, I knew, with a weight that pressed upon my entire being, that the galaxy had witnessed the birth of a new master, one that would not simply survive, but command. The war had ended, but the echoes of devastation lingered like a persistent shadow across the galaxy. We expected reprisal, the slow grind of vengeance from a species that had tasted fire. Instead, humanity imposed order, a structure both invisible and absolute, like the pull of a newly forged gravity well. They called it the Terran Compact, a vast alliance where former enemies, defeated fleets, and subjugated worlds were offered protection in exchange for loyalty. I was assigned as liaison between my species and Earth, forced to walk the endless corridors of their colossal star citadels, observing their systems with a mixture of awe and dread. The first thing I noticed was how alien their calm appeared. Humans were not tyrants. They did not gloat over their victory. They did not parade their power for spectacle. What they built was stability, meticulously engineered through violence that had already proven unassailable. Every command center, every orbital citadel, every fleet deployment radiated efficiency and precision. I had expected arrogance, domination for domination's sake. Instead, I found architecture. Humanity had forged civilization across the stars with the discipline of builders and the ruthlessness of predators. Their fleets patrolled the stars with a rhythm that seemed almost organic. Patrols moved through hyperlanes with disciplined precision, quelling piracy, enforcing treaties, and preventing genocide before it could ignite. Systems that had once feared Earth flourished under their oversight. Trade resumed. Technologies long dormant were revived and distributed selectively. Yet the cost of peace was unmistakable. No power, no matter how cunning, could challenge Earth again. I watched diplomats from 100 species tremble during negotiations, their carefully honed confidence faltering under the weight of human expectation.
Behind every polite gesture, every smile, lay the potential for annihilation. One misstep, one breach of protocol, and entire worlds could vanish, swiftly, decisively, without argument. I traveled through orbital cities, walking streets suspended in vacuum, where humans and aliens alike conducted commerce, education, and research. I observed how systems devastated by the war were being rebuilt, not left to rot. Human engineers and uplifted species worked side by side, reconstructing cities, terraforming planets, and revitalizing dying ecosystems. Primitive worlds were not conquered, they were uplifted, their inhabitants granted technology and guidance to thrive. It was not kindness, it was strategy. Every act of generosity ensured interdependence, binding the galaxy into a network where human oversight was both subtle and absolute. Even in diplomacy, the subtlety of their dominance was striking. I attended councils where representatives of multiple species debated treaties, arms reductions, and trade agreements. Each discussion carried the invisible weight of Terran presence. Human delegates spoke sparingly, but each word carried authority. Any attempt to deceive, any miscalculation would be exposed immediately, corrected, or punished. And yet, their approach was never overtly coercive. They ruled through capability, through the awareness that their power was omnipresent and unchallengeable. It was a mastery unlike anything I had ever witnessed. I spent hours walking through their star citadels,
watching their fleets move in patterns that seemed at once ritualistic and adaptive. Dreadnoughts glided alongside the troll vessels, escorting convoys of science ships, relief vessels, and industrial carriers. Each unit understood its role, every system synchronized to ensure the smooth function of a galaxy-wide machine. Humans had not merely won a war, they had translated victory into order, converting chaos into structure that would endure for centuries. And yet, there was humanity in it, in the quiet moments. Scientists debated planetary reconstruction protocols. Artists rebuilt damaged cultural sites on alien worlds. Children trained in simulation chambers, learning history, tactics, and philosophy, absorbing the lessons of war without glorifying it. I realized that humans had encoded their doctrine not just in ships or weapons, but into society itself, an evolutionary system that ensured continuity, efficiency, and dominance. The paradox was unsettling. They could annihilate entire fleets in moments, reduce entire worlds to rubble, and yet offer technology, guidance, and protection to the same populations they had defeated. Their mercy was deliberate, their wrath absolute. It was not morality, it was calculation. Every act of reconstruction, every gesture of assistance, ensured loyalty. Every act of destruction guaranteed compliance.
They had woven the galaxy into a single, self-sustaining system, with themselves at the center, both guardian and overlord. I observed diplomats from other species learning this the hard way. Attempts to negotiate outside of Terran parameters were met with subtle corrections, ships repositioning in orbit, fleets shadowing transport convoys, communications subtly redirected. The message was always clear. Obedience was rewarded, defiance was intolerable. And yet, no human raised a weapon unnecessarily. No fleet fired without reason. The elegance of their control lay in restraint, in knowing precisely when to act and when to allow the illusion of autonomy. It was during one council meeting, observing the fragile representatives of once proud star empires, that I understood fully the extent of their achievement. Every system, every civilization, every individual lived under the shadow of Terran capability. And yet, they thrived. Prosperity flowed where devastation had reigned. Trade resumed between species that had fought centuries of wars. Education programs crossed planetary lines, and research initiatives flourished under Terran supervision. Humanity had not merely conquered, they had integrated the galaxy into a living network, ensuring peace, order, and stability on terms entirely their own. I left the council chamber shaken, the weight of understanding pressing upon me. Humans had transformed the galaxy without apparent aggression. They had taken victory and turned it into structure, weaving survival and dominance into a single doctrine. Their order was absolute, not enforced through fear alone, but through efficiency, foresight, and inevitability. One wrong move, one miscalculation, and a species could vanish. Yet compliance brought unprecedented opportunity and security. I walked the Citadel corridors long into the artificial night, observing the pulse of a civilization that had mastered both war and governance. There was no chaos here, no uncertainty. Humans had translated their experience, their ingenuity, and their ruthlessness into a galactic architecture that would endure. I understood then that we were no longer merely guests in their system. We were participants in a galaxy shaped entirely by their will, constrained by their logic, and protected by their vigilance. And as I recorded my observations, I could feel the quiet, inescapable truth. Humanity's rise had not ended with victory. It had only begun. Through order forged by violence, through control tempered by purpose, they had become both the shield and the hammer of the cosmos. The galaxy lay beneath their gaze, balanced on the edge of fear and trust, and in that balance they would endure. Centuries have passed since the last great conflict. I sit now in an observatory suspended above a star reborn, its corona shimmering with the gentle hum of a galaxy healed. From this vantage, I watch worlds that once trembled before Earth now flourish under the careful guidance of the Terran Compact. Trade flows along hyperlanes, children of 100 species study together in Terran academies, and knowledge spreads faster than any weapon once could. The galaxy thrives, but the memory of humanity's wrath lingers in every corner, a silent testament to the cost of defiance. I reflect upon what I have witnessed, the centuries of observation, and the lessons carved into my consciousness.
Humanity is a paradox unlike any other species I have encountered. They are gentle in times of peace, playful, creative, capable of artistry and music that transcend species boundaries. They are builders, architects, and dreamers. Yet when their survival is threatened, they become something entirely different, a force of nature, unyielding, unstoppable, terrifying. They move with precision, with intelligence, with a will that bends the galaxy to their purpose without hesitation. It is not domination that drives their fearsome reputation, it is survival. They are feared not because they seek to rule, but because they refuse to die. Every encounter with them has shown that their instinct to endure, to adapt, to overcome is unmatched. I have watched civilizations fall before them, entire fleets vanish in minutes, and still the humans remain, unbroken, calculating, relentless. They teach a brutal truth to any who would listen. Weakness invites extinction, and strength tempered by purpose is absolute. I gaze down at Earth, now radiant beneath its orbital rings, glimmering with interstellar gateways and flourishing cities visible even from this distance. The planet is no longer fragile. It is a crucible, forged in fire and war, tempered in resilience and strategy. It is a living testament to the power of determination and the ingenuity that arises when survival is demanded, when every generation is tested, and when a species refuses to be broken. From this perspective, I understand the duality of their nature. They create, nurture, and uplift, sharing knowledge, technology, and protection with those who join them. They are capable of profound compassion, raising civilizations from ruin, repairing what they have destroyed, and teaching lessons of strategy without cruelty to those who submit. But their protection is measured, conditional, precise, earned through recognition of their authority and respect for their might. The galaxy, under their influence, has changed in ways no council, no alliance, no fleet could have predicted. The systems once fractured by greed, war, and petty squabbles now exist in a fragile harmony, held together not by fear alone, but by the careful application of human wisdom and strategy. Yet every species knows, at the edge of every decision, that miscalculation can summon annihilation. It is a balance they maintain, and it is terrifyingly effective. I remember my own fear when I first witnessed humanity's rise.
The panic of our councils, the slaughter of fleets, the ruin of planets, all seemed unstoppable then. And yet, what humanity built afterward was far more formidable than war alone. They transformed victory into order, chaos into structure, survival into a principle that governs the galaxy itself. Every act of mercy is deliberate, every act of force is precise. Their philosophy is simple yet absolute. To endure, one must be both kind enough to build and fierce enough to defend. From this observatory, I see children from myriad species practicing simulations of human battles, learning tactics, diplomacy, and philosophy simultaneously. I see scientists collaborating across planetary lines, applying Terran guidance to energy, agriculture, and medical fields. I see the echoes of human strategy embedded in the very fabric of galactic society. Their influence is pervasive yet subtle, like gravity itself, felt everywhere, shaping everything, undeniable. And yet, despite their omnipresence, there is no arrogance in humanity. They do not rule for vanity nor glory. They rule because they must, because their survival has demanded it. Their lessons are cruel only to those who resist. Their mercy extends to those who yield and learn. They are not tyrants, not in the sense we once feared. They are architects, builders of civilizations, guardians of order, and enforcers of survival. From my perspective as an alien elder, the paradox of humanity is both terrifying and awe-inspiring. They are capable of acts that would shame the most enlightened species, yet they are equally capable of acts that inspire hope across star systems. They are both predator and protector, destroyer and creator, capable of unimaginable violence and boundless generosity. They have taught the galaxy a lesson few will ever forget. Survival is not given, it is earned, defended, and enforced with a precision that leaves no margin for error. As I gaze upon the planet that was once a mere curiosity, I realize that Earth's ascent was not merely a story of war, but of evolution, intellect, and willpower.
It was a crucible in which a species transformed itself from fragile newcomers to the most feared and respected civilization in known space. Their duality, compassion and ruthlessness, creativity and destruction, mercy and absolute force is their greatest weapon, their ultimate doctrine, and their enduring legacy. The galaxy has not known major war since Earth's rise. Planets flourish, species thrive, and trade flows unhindered. And yet every system remembers the price of defiance, the inevitability of human response, and the quiet, unshakable truth that survival belongs to those who embrace both creation and defense. As I close my records with one final observation, humanity's lesson is clear. Power tempered by purpose and compassion balanced with resolve is absolute. The galaxy has learned, and it will endure, guided by the species that refuses to die.
As I watch Earth, radiant in its orbital rings, alive with interstellar gateways, I see not a fragile planet, not a fledgling civilization, but the crucible that forged the strongest force in known space. And in that duality, kindness enough to build, ruthlessness enough to defend, I know humanity will endure forever.